I remember she remarked on my lipstick and saying, you know, it was pretty. And then she's like, this is what we're going to do for Claire. We're going to give her an internship with the website and we'll start with her on Monday. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
I remember like dancing down the Champs-Elysees, listening to Kirk Franklin. Like that was like,
so chic. What? What?
It was just one of those moments. I've had a few of those moments in my life where I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Thank you, God.
Claire Sulmers is the founder and CEO of the notorious digital fashion publication, Fashion Bomb Daily. Her ascent into becoming one of the industry's top self-made media moguls was not an easy one. Often met with industry gatekeepers who refused to give Claire a seat at the table, the Stone Mountain, Georgia native built her own. Equipped with an unrelenting dream and her Harvard degree in French and African American studies, Claire charted her own path by taking internships and positions at publications like Upscale magazine, Newsweek, and Real Simple, where she actually built a fashion empire from her cubicle. I had an opportunity to sit down with Claire to discuss her unique career path, her quest to show the diversity of Black fashion, and the importance of putting God first. Check out our conversation.
Welcome to A Fashion Moment. I am so excited to have you here. And just watching your career over the years just like blow up has been phenomenal to watch. Because I remember you from back in the day, like when you first started, probably like I met you like maybe a year after you started. It was like very, very new. And I was just like, oh my God, there's a Black girl, like a fashion, like what? And I was just like, oh my God, like you were one of the only people doing it the way that you did it at the time. Like it was crazy.
I know. It's been a long and wonderful journey, and I love to see how much the industry has shifted and changed to be more inclusive. And I really hope that I was one of those people that helped to push that movement forward. You know,
absolutely. You were one of the first.
I don't want to take all the credit, but you know.
I mean, there was only a handful. There was only a handful because, you know, for the Black folks like me who wanted to be in the industry or were, you know, just getting their career started, like we were constantly looking like, is there anyone who looks like me in here? Like who's doing what, you know? So it was like, you know, folks like yourself. And I was like obsessed with Bonnie Morrison, you know, who does fashion PR. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she was on the show as well. Like I'm obsessed. It's like Bonnie. Oh my God. Like it was phenomenal because she was one of the first people, you know.
Yeah, Genevieve Jones.
Yeah. Oh my God. Genevieve. I think she's like doing yoga now, like living her best life. Like
there's so many. Who's the other one?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. But anywho, I would love to start at the beginning of your journey. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's start with, you know, what was life like growing up in Stone Mountain, Georgia and Atlanta at one point? Like, what was that like? The early days of Claire?
The early days of Claire was living in Stone Mountain, Georgia, which sounds really country and rural, but it's actually, let's say 30 minutes outside of Atlanta proper. So I guess you could consider it Atlanta proper. Going to high school, clear across town in the fancy part of town in Buckhead, being one of 4 Black kids out of 100 in fourth grade, moving from Brooklyn, New York, where I went to a majority Black public school, to now being at this majority white private school and trying to find my footing, and also living in a totally different, like I was 45 minutes away from school. So I just spent a lot of time reading, a lot of time writing, a lot of time in magazines, fashion magazines. I used to have subscriptions to all of them. And always being one of those people at the very beginning, being like, where's a girl that looks like me? I'm not cute. I don't see anybody who represents this chubby girl with glasses who's staring back at them, and wanted to just be that change from a very young age. So,
what was your very first like fashion memory? Like, when were you introduced to fashion to the point where you're just like, oh my God, I love this?
Well, fashion's in my family. My maternal grandfather, he was a tailor in Nassau. Yeah, and he owned a tailor shop called Boog's Master's Touch. So he made suits and tuxedos for special occasions, people in the Bahamas. And my mother, she grew up making she grew up making dresses for dolls and stuff like that. And then when my mom and her family moved to New York, she went to the High School for Fashion Industries.
Oh, wow.
She would make her own clothes. She used to make clothes for me as well. And so fashion wasn't one of those things that was like whimsical or only in the pages of Vogue. It was very practical and, just a sewing machine and fabric and a needle and thread. And my mom, she would always say, like, I developed early. I had like a size C cup when I was 13.
Oh my goodness. Oh my. Claire!
Always been curvy.
Woo, yeah. Bra shopping. I'm like, my goodness.
Yes. And so she used to make clothes for me a lot when I was a young lady. Wow. And so it's in my blood. It's in my blood. But me kind of thinking about it as a career and moving into that sphere, it's more of a recent thing. It was after college, going into journalism.
Oh, we gotta back up because y'all, most of you guys know, but some of you guys may not know that Claire has attended Harvard University and she studied French and African-American studies. I have to ask though, personally, what was it like, studying under one of my favorite people on the planet, Henry Louis Gates, the Henry Louis Gates Jr. and Cornel West?
It was awesome. It was like the best of times. I mean, who wouldn't want to study under Henry Louis Gates and Cornel West? And all the stuff that I was learning about in school is stuff that's still relevant to this day. It's actually kind of sad that the country hasn't moved much further than that. But it really kind of lit a fire under me. And that's where the quest for equal representation and positive representation and showing the diversity of Black people, that's where that comes from. It's from those classes with Cornel West and Evelyn Higginbotham and Louis Gates. I mean, they had some all-stars there when I was
Claire. Oh my God. Do you still have it, like your notebooks, like all the notes you took?
Honestly, I'm sure my mom still has them. I'm sure she does. She's like that.
Well, in a previous interview, you mentioned that your education actually help to fuel your confidence. And so, for those who want to work in fashion, would you say like getting an education makes an impact on one's success in the industry? Is it needed?
I get that question a lot. I get the question about, why'd you go to Harvard to study fashion? And my typical retort is, when I was 18, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I got into Harvard, so I went. But I would say in general in fashion, it doesn't matter that much. What matters more is your work experience, your connections, your work ethic, your creativity. But I would say that as a person of color, a Black woman, if you can come armed with as many missiles in your arsenal as you can, so that, people will continue to try to deny you. And this is not a revolutionary statement. This is fact. Yeah. It's fact that we get paid less. It's fact that we don't get access to the same opportunities. So if you can just arm yourself with whatever education you can find, and it doesn't need to be like a graduate degree or anything like that, but be like, oh, by the way, I know you say that my website is not credible. However, I did go to Harvard and graduate 9 cum laude. It's just one of those things where you can whip it out when necessary, but I never lead with that.
Yeah.
It's more so about the work that I've done and what I've built.
I love that. Like get those missiles, y'all. Get those missiles.
That too. I mean, we have to, and it's interesting because I was just having a conversation the other day with someone about, when you post photos on Instagram, specifically on Fashion Bomb Daily, and God bless Fashion Bomb Daily readers. I love them,
Yes.
But for example, someone was wearing this beautiful dress, and then somebody was like, "But those toes, though." And
come on. You know how our people are, though.
I know, but we have to be so perfect. We have to be, and it's unfortunate that it's that way. But for me, I'm always like, when I step outside, I want to be on point. Everything, like, you want to have everything, any box you can check off. Just go ahead and check it off.
Yeah, I love that. So you go to Harvard, you graduate. Like, what was your first job out of college?
Right. So I initially wanted to work in TV. I could not find a job in TV. I moved back home to Atlanta. I was partying around, working in retail for a little bit. And then I got an internship at Upscale magazine. I was in Kroger one day. I saw a cool magazine. I picked it up. I looked on the what's it called?
The masthead.
The masthead.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I almost said letterhead.
All good. It's a Friday. It's a Friday.
Right. I'm like, anyway, I looked on the masthead. I saw a name. I emailed them. They called me in, and I thought I wanted to go into the politics or news division. They said, we have an opening in fashion, and I went for it. They paid me nothing, $0.00, which was fine because I was excited to be there, and just worked my way up from writing captions to writing cover stories. They actually wanted to hire me, but I had my sights set on New York because I really wanted to work in magazines, and I had some boy I was dating up in New York that I also wanted to hang out with. And so, after Upscale, I moved to New York. I found every paid internship I could find, which was difficult. But I worked at New York Magazine. That was $5.15 an hour.
Ooh. You're taking me back. I remember when, yes, you guys, I'm telling you, with these new laws and everything, y'all got it good.
I know, because we just tried to hire somebody. She was like, skirt, minimum wage is ... I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fine then. But yeah, I worked for $5.15 coming up. And then the next one was Newsweek, where I think it was like $10 an hour. Then I was a page for 2 seconds. And then I finally found a full-time job at Real Simple magazine as a researcher reporter, which wasn't like, it was a great job, but it wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. But I was just so tired of interning and not having health insurance and not having weekends or vacations. I was like, and so it was great. And Real Simple is really where everything started for me in terms of, just the Fashion Bomb. Like, I started Fashion Bomb in my cubicle at Real Simple magazine. Wow. And 15 years later, here I am. Yeah.
Wait, so did you start Fashion Bomb Daily before you moved to France?
Yeah. Yep. So I started it in 2006.
Okay.
And I would say that by 2008, it got to the point where people were recognizing me on the train as I was going to work. Yeah. And I was doing interviews on the phone while I was at work. I was doing my blog at work. Like, when I first started blogging, I would do it over the weekends or in the evenings, like you're supposed to do. But then it got so all encompassing, and it got popular, I guess, enough where I was updating on the job. And I remember my boss would walk by my cubicle like, "What are you working on?" And I'm like, "Nothing."
That is hilarious.
Yeah. So it got to the point where I wasn't finding a way up, or I was trying to get into the fashion department at the magazine I was working at. They weren't trying to hear me. Yeah. I was applying to Vogue and Elle and Allure, and they weren't trying to hear me either. And so I was like, I have this degree in French. I always wanted to live in Paris for a long amount of time. I can justify like starting at the bottom at a fashion magazine if I move abroad. And so I quit my job and I moved to Paris in 2008.
Wow. With $2,000 in your pocket.
$2,000, like a nutcase, and shopping and doing all kinds of stuff, not knowing how to budget.
Oh my goodness. Hey, but you learned. What was it like working at Vogue Paris? Was that your first gig in France, or did you do something else?
My first gig in Paris, I believe I found a job teaching businessmen English. It was through a company that just, hired Americans or English speakers to teach people English. And so I did that. And I also taught English at this school in Les Banlieues, which is in the suburbs. They were these high school students, and I would come in, like, I'm not a good teacher. I would have them watch Judge Judy or something and be like, watch this. And I would just
too funny. I cannot.
Just doing silly stuff and not making enough money and whatever, the typical stories. But then finally it was kind of miraculous where I got this internship at Paris Vogue. They had this incident where they were one of the first magazines to do blackface. There was this whole stretch of time when magazines were doing blackface. Everybody was calling Paris Vogue racist. I took that opportunity to write them a letter. Wow. And I got a meeting with Corine Roitfeld, and she gave me an internship with Vogue.fr with their online site.
So first of all, what was she wearing? What did you wear? And then what was she wearing when you guys first met? Like, that's amazing.
That's a great question. I don't know if I remember. I think I was wearing like a black dress, probably from Zara, probably, and some sort of blazer. I really can't remember. I think I just did all black.
Yes.
I remember
very French.
Just chic. If you get a black dress from Zara, it can look very expensive and elevated. And I think she was wearing all black too, if I can recall correctly. I don't know, but I remember she remarked on my makeup. And mind you, this is like Claire, this is pre-super duper beat glam Claire. This is pre-blonde locks Claire. This is like...
I remember that Claire. That's the Claire I met.
Yeah, little tiny dreads, like no idea about contouring, like no eyebrows, probably, definitely no lashes. But, I did my best. And I remember she remarked on my lipstick and saying, it was pretty. And then she's like, this is what we're going to do for Claire. We're going to get her an internship with the website, and we'll start with her on Monday. And I was like,
oh my God.
I remember like dancing down the Champs-Elysees, listening to Kirk Franklin. Like that was like,
chic. What? Move out of the way, Emily, in Paris. Like this needs to be a show. Like, I love that visual. Oh my God. Wow, Claire.
It was just one of those moments. I've had a few of those moments in my life where I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Thank you, God. And that was one.
Yes. I have a random French question. Yeah. I did study in Cannes, and that's sort of where I practiced my French. But when I came back, I was like, you guys, is it Moet or Moet? I could have sworn it was Moet. Okay, Moet. Thank you.
Prononce pas le T.
Like,
yeah, the French don't like to pronounce none of them letters.
Right. So when I was here, I was like, Moet, and people were like, huh? Like, I was like, never mind, you guys.
Mispronounce most things, I would say.
So what would you say is one of the most defining differences, like between your life when you lived and worked in France versus your life in the States?
I mean, the sky is truly the limit when it comes to living in the United States. And I'm sure things are different now, perhaps with Instagram and TikTok and so many ways to reach out and touch the world and become an entrepreneur through a digital medium. But, I really wanted to, my dream was to work at Paris Vogue full time, not just intern there. Wow. And my dream was to be one of those fashion editors you see. And it just wasn't possible for me. And I don't know why that was, not to discount the experience at all.
Yeah.
And in cities in the States, I don't know if it's the same. I know things have changed a lot, but I would say that in America, as long as you have a good idea and as long as you have a work ethic, it doesn't matter who you are, where you were born, what size you are, what race, how much money you have, you really can achieve anything you want. And we've seen that in so many different instances, whether it's Oprah or Diddy or any of the people that I look up to, you know what I mean? They can come from absolutely nothing and turn it into something. Whereas I don't think in France, I didn't feel like it was the same way.
Yeah.
Or old, it's very old and it's established, and whoever's rich, they're from rich people, and and it's kind of stays that way. But in America, you can be whatever you want to be.
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, in France, that was the first time I saw old money, colonial money. I was like, whoa, my goodness, castles. They're like, oh yeah, that's my home. It's been in my family for generations. I'm like, what?
Right. Exactly.
Wild. So what were you surprised to learn about yourself from your experience in France in general?
I think just that determination and grit and just going for it. I when I moved to Paris, I knew 2 people. Wow. There was no way I could have gotten into Paris Vogue or into any fashion show. And I asked people, I asked editors, I asked for connections. I was not ashamed or hesitant to do so.
Yeah.
But, when I heard no too many times, I just turned up, and I went to that show, even if you told me not to. And I stood outside and I met Kanye and I went to the Jean Paul Gaultier show and I just did it. I just did it because I felt like I had to do it. And even though I'm sure it ruffled a few feathers, I just went for it. And so I think that experience just showed me my persistence and consistency. It also taught me so much about faith. I got my master's faith and hope because I felt like it was just God looking out for me at every stage. And I remember being on my knees and praying for a breakthrough, and it came, and it made absolutely no sense. And it was really just by the grace of God that everything happened.
Thank you, God. Yes. I felt that, Claire. I felt that.
Gotta give the glory, honey.
Okay. Don't get them shouting on my podcast now. I tell you.
Because a lot of people, and this is something that I used to do, specifically before we experienced our Instagram incident in 2018, which is I used to take credit for everything. And I was like, I did it. I work hard. It was my team and me. And it's like, no, God blesses you with these opportunities. And it's a gift that he gives you to bless others. Yes. And so you always have to keep that in mind and remain extremely humble and grateful for everything that you're experiencing.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Claire. Yes. So true. You guys put them first. But what brought you back to the States?
What brought me back to the States was not having a job. Oh, and I think also my work permit had expired by that time. Because I was there for a good 2 years. And I remember wanting to work and for them to hire me. And they said it would be too expensive. I think they have to sponsor you or something like this. And so they were like, was nice to know you. And so I was really sad. But the same month that I left Paris Vogue was the month that I got my first big check from blogging. It was $5,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I remember, because I'm big on writing down goals and all this stuff. And I remember writing down, I was like, all I will need to live is $5,000. And I got it. And it was a consistent amount of money every month. And so I was wow, after 2 years of struggling here in Paris and 2 years of trying to figure out how to monetize my blog, I was able to figure it out. And so it was kind of like divine timing that the minute I was able to move at the same time where I was able to live full time from blogging. And so I moved back to New York and I really never looked back.
Wow. Wow. I just have to tell you, I enjoyed watching your Breakfast Club interview again in preparation for this. It just tickled my soul. And in the interview, you mentioned that, Fashion Bomb Daily is like a very reader-centric, publication. And it's not like you and your team are in like some ivory tower telling people what to do and how, what they should look like. So what was your reasoning behind that approach? Because, a lot of folks in fashion sort of want, especially around the time you started, wanted to be like a fashion authority.
Yeah, I think I realized early on, I'm always very aware and observant of what readers want. And we started Mail Bombs, which is now, I guess, wardrobe inquiries or you ask, we answer. We started that very early on in the days of Fashion Bomb Daily, and people always love it. They love that they can write to us and ask us what people are wearing and that we can tell them what they're wearing. And so I realized that having that interactive part of it was very important. Another big feature that always did well for us was Fashion Bombshell of the Day.
Yes.
People can feel like, it's not just them looking at Beyonce or Kim Kardashian. If they have great style, then they can participate and be a part of the fashion conversation as well. And I would say between those and also what to wear, people like asking us what they should wear to different events, which we definitely do more of. Just realizing what was popular and what performed well for us, and then just adding more fuel to that fire. Like I'm always looking and seeing where people are and what are they doing and what do they want and how can I supply that demand. And so that's what we continue to do to this day. And I think it's one of our key differentiating factors that is also a big key to our success.
Oh, love that. And so you mentioned earlier, you finally cracked the code on monetizing your blog. And that's something that people seem to be, very focused on these days, whether it's their blog or, social media platform. Do you have any advice for folks who are trying to find ways to monetize digitally their digital content?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is to provide real value. I think that a lot of people, they just want money and they don't want to provide value and like actual content. And so first things first, provide something organically that people will come to, and then just see like what's out there. Like, okay, you can sell ads. You can also be an influencer. You can have events. You can create sponsored content. You could offer consultations. You can charge people. There are many different things and areas of expertise where you can add a monetary value. And it's not to say, like, definitely look at what the industry will allow and what the standard is, and don't get too greedy, but like stay grounded, offer people a great service at a great price. As more demand increases, you can increase that price. But I would just say to sit down and think about what can you offer to people that they would be willing to pay for. And then don't be afraid to have one price, but then raise the price. As Fat Joe said, yesterday's price is not today's price,
Yes.
Yeah. And also don't be afraid to ask for what you want. Like in a lot of my posts, specifically on Claire Sulmers, most of them I'm like, if you want to book me for something, it used to be to host an event or speak on a panel. Now it's like, you want me to wear your clothes or your jewelry. Like I am not afraid to ask, because I look at social media as a business vehicle. There's a personal aspect as well, but and people might feel a way about saying that, but if you don't ask, then you won't receive. closed mouths don't get fed. Let's make it really easy, really simple for people to give you money. I mean, I can keep going.
I love it.
Make sure you accept all forms of payment, Cash App, PayPal. And something I've noticed specifically when wanting to advertise on other pages, like obviously have some standards for what you will post, but like also kind of like let people post what they want to post, like make exceptions. You know, if the goal is for you to feed the bottom dollar, then, you know, you have to kind of play the game. And like, I don't know. Those are just a few thoughts.
Thank you for all those nuggets. I know at the beginning, you were sort of more behind the scenes of your content, and now you are like the face. What was the transition like for you, and what was behind the decision? Like, you know what? I'm a part of this brand.
The part of the tradition, I think the one big event that kicked it off for me was, I remember H&M, they used to do the designer collaborations.
Oh, yes.
They did one with Lanvin. They did one with Victor and Rolf. And these were
Marnie.
Crazy things. I remember that one was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know why they stopped doing those. But anyway.
I want more.
I just remember reporting on it and having these millions of people from Fashion Bomb Daily undoubtedly buying it based off of our recommendations and our posts about it. But then when they would have their runway shows, they would invite all these bloggers who I'm sure had the same amount of traffic, but they were the faces of their brand. Now in retrospect, there's probably a lot more reasons why they were invited and I wasn't. But
we know.
We know, right. But I was just like, yo, I got to be the face of my brand. I have to put myself out there, even if it makes me uncomfortable. And if I'd rather not the criticism of my pedicure, whether or not I have one, you know, it's just a business decision.
Wow.
And it's certainly paid off because now the Claire Sulmers brand is a totally different brand from the Fashion Daily brand. And so it's just another way to diversify the portfolio. And I would say to anyone, like, if something scares you, do it anyway. Say no to fear. Fear is just a figment of your imagination.
Claire,
okay?
don't you preach to me today. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm taking you to church.
I love it. Because, you know, that whole, like, I'm actually, believe it or not, a very private person. So like my team, they're always like, put yourself out there, talk, you know, try this, do this. At least my digital person. Hey, Megan. And I'm just like, like, really, y'all? Like, really? And it makes me uncomfortable sometimes. I'm like, you guys really want to see this? Like, are you sure?
It helps it. For me, it helped to do it with a purpose. So now we have Fashion Bomb Daily Shop. So I'm like, I'm wearing Fashion Bomb Daily Shop. Or if it's a sponsored look, then there's a reason. It's not just like, here I am eating lunch. You know what I mean?
I mean, TikTok is wild. It's like the wild, wild west, you know, with the content.
TikTok is next. I plan to ramp up TikTok during Fashion Week because I'm like, gonna have real content. But
I'm so excited.
That's another big part of it too, you know, being open to the new, go where the people are. So a lot of us are OGs, like Instagram, blog OGs, we're kind of rolling our eyes at the whole idea of how to build a whole new group of people on another platform. But at the end of the day, if that's where they are, then go there.
Absolutely. You know, we've been seeing Brian Boy like almost every day. He's like, hey guys, building up the following. I'm like, yes, do what you gotta do.
Gotta do what you gotta do. Not so
you know, in 2016 you wrote a book. And everyone go get the book. We'll put the link in the show notes. The Bomb Life.
Yes.
My brand, my terms. So what inspired you to write this?
What inspired me to write that book? That's a great question. 10 years of blogging, experiencing a modicum of success, and wanting to share my journey with everyone. And I think it really was, we started Combos with Claire, or Cocktails with Claire rather, in 2013. And one of the questions I most often got was like, why did you start blogging, and how do you monetize your blog? And so I decided to just write a book that told my story and also gave people tips on how they could do the same. And I'm sure it's in need of updates. Like, blogging is such an antiquated term right now, right?
So wild. It's mind-blowing.
So it's way past
a digital publication. A digital publication.
Yeah. I'm a media mogul, business owner, CEO, etc.
I love it. So, was there ever a time when you slightly doubted like what you were doing, like your passion and the way things were going with Fashion Bomb Daily? And if so, like how did you get through that time?
Yes, there are times. There are plenty of times, even now, now we're in the process of fundraising and taking meetings with VCs, and it's just like, it's hard, it's really hard to get people to believe in your vision, and it's hard to keep going every day. But I think on those times when you're down or discouraged, rest, get some rest. I always say, when you get tired, learn to rest, not quit. And also understand that you have a calling on your heart for a reason. I do feel like that's an assignment from God. And you wouldn't have these thoughts if it were not divinely ordered or ordained. And so just keep at it. Sometimes there are situations that are there to test your faith or to test your spirit, but just push through and look at the small victories, So you might receive a no here, but let's see where you got a yes. Like Fashion Week's coming up. Okay, I didn't get this show, but wow, look at all these great shows I got to attend. And I think always focusing on the positive things in your life, I think is important. And positive successes. Like, how crazy if I were to be like, I suck, and then you look on Instagram and you're like, you have 1.9 million followers.
Right?
What are you talking about? You know what I mean? You have to always look at what positive is happening in your life and focus on that and just continue to push through.
I love it.
Even
so
with the
much.
flood, I was like, I lost 2 pairs of boots, but
oh my goodness,
I could have lost a lot more, and I didn't. There are people who lost their lives. So, try to focus on the positive and just keep it pushing.
Love that. You've been on top of this diversity game, like since day one, as I previously mentioned. You've been at the forefront of really pushing people of color into the center of the narrative of fashion, where we weren't like really welcome before. So, obviously there have been several appointments and, several, Black models on the runways now. Like, people have diversity and inclusion reports. Black Lives Matter definitely shifted, I would say shook a lot of companies and organizations into thinking more about diversity and inclusion. But do you think that this is a movement that will progress, or do you think that perhaps this is just a trend? What are your thoughts on some of the things that are happening? Is this sustainable?
I think that's a great question. I mean, it's going to be sustainable for me. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know what the industry is going to do. I know that this issue of diversity has been a struggle, kind of an uphill battle, honestly, since I began and before I began Fashion Bomb Daily. And we've seen like Beth Ann Hardison with her Black in Fashion talks. And when she was doing those, the industry was changing, and then it kind of receded a bit. And I think it's just an interesting time right now where there are designers who exist and have their own ecosystem completely outside of the quote unquote traditional fashion industry. And they are so successful without the cosign of anybody. Yeah. And I think that is the way forward, not looking for validation, not looking for acknowledgement, not looking for anything from CFDA or Vogue or anything like that, and just continuing to do your own thing, your brand, your terms, and you're going to reach your people in your way. And that's it, regardless of whether or not they think it's trendy or not. I think that's the way forward in my mind.
I love that. Do you have any like go-to designers that you're obsessed with that you personally love?
Well, of course, I love Khalifa.
Mm-hmm.
I love Balmain. I'm a Balmain whore. No, I'm just kidding. I love a lot of the designers in Fashion Bomb Daily Shop, including Oyemwin and Saisenko, London Couture. But I really wear a little bit of everything. I wear BBX brand, which is a brand out of London. They have a lot of great suits.
Oh,
because I'm like, if you want to make money, wear a suit. Kai Collective. I honestly wear a lot of black designers on purpose.
Yes.
Ducky Confetti, Milano di Rouge. Like I'm just going. For me, clothing is about really showing where your values lie.
Wow.
Obviously, it's about how it looks and does it show off your legs. But with all the choices we have, you can choose to use your body as a canvas to show what you truly value. And for me, in Fashion Bomb Daily, we value showing the beauty of diversity of designers and giving that emerging next designer a shot. And so those are the designers that I wear.
I love it. So, I'm just curious, like, who are some of the people that have inspired you throughout your career? Like, did you have mentors? Was there someone you grew up watching?
Obviously, my far away mentors, the ones who were not actual mentors, but I just like to their careers with all, obviously, Andre Leon Talley.
Yes.
And Robin Gavon.
Yes.
Terry Agins.
Yep.
Who is the fashion writer at the Wall
Street Journal. Yes, Terry.
She's someone I would consider a mentor.
Yeah.
And then there are women who are CEOs of their own companies and in banking, and even some of my friends from college who I would consider mentors. But I would say coming up in the industry, certainly Robin Gavon and Andre Leon Talley, they were like my go-to people that I was like completely obsessed with.
Yeah.
Wanted to do everything that they did. I remember reading about Andre and how he moved to Paris when he was 28. So I moved to Paris when I was 28. And he was working at Women's Wear Daily, and I tried to work at Women's Wear Daily, but I got to Vogue. And just trying to follow in their footsteps. They're iconic.
Yes.
Better for worse, whether or not they were my actual mentor or not, they by them doing what they did and being successful at what they were doing, they inspired me to be who I am today.
Absolutely. And Robin, everything she writes, like,
she's brilliant.
Wow. Like, you guys will get chills. Yeah. Robin is just, I would say, one of the best writers, period.
Yeah. I remember I met her. I used to harass her to meet with her all the time. And she would meet with me. But the one time I read like 100 of her articles or something insane before I met her. And
I love it.
Yeah, she's super.
She's like so chill. So she was probably like, oh. I love it. Well, this is a fashion moment. And one thing that we always ask our guests is, what is one of your favorite fashion moments of all time? Just one of them, because I know you have several. It could be something that you witnessed. It could be something that you experienced. But just a magical fashion moment where you're just like, oh my God, like, this is it.
I would say going to the Balmain show in, I want to say 2020, maybe. I think it was right before, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's 2019, but I sat front row. I'll never forget it because I flew out last minute on a flight to Paris. They lost my bags.
Oh my God.
I basically had to wear what I wore on the plane to the show. I looked insane. But I was front row, and I remember I went live, and I remember people were like, this video is better than the one that Balmain has on their feed. And I was like, yes. But that was one of those moments where I was like, I made it. Kind of. Not really I made it, but when I first started going to Fashion Week, I didn't have any invitations. I didn't have any access. I had no way in. I could just kind of look from the outside in. And so to have those moments when you are not only in there, but you're on the front row at one of the biggest brands in the world, that was a true fashion moment for me.
I got chills just thinking about that. Was that the same season from the documentary that came out?
Yeah. And you can see me in there.
I'm going to rewatch it just so I can see you, because that documentary was so good.
It was super brief, but I'm in there.
I love it. Well, Claire, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us and to just share your story so openly. I'm inspired, and I'm sure that our listeners are too. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and be sure to join us. We're having our first Fashion Week show, September 11th. It's called the Bomb Fashion Show. You can get tickets at thebombfashionshow.eventbrite.com. Please join us.
And where can people find you, Claire?
You can find me on Instagram at Fashion Bomb Daily and at Claire Sulmers, and coming soon to TikTok.
Yes. Well, thank you, Claire. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for joining me for this week of A Fashion Moment. If you like what you hear, we'd love for you to join our community of listeners and spread the word about the show. We also want to hear from you. Share your favorite fashion moments and dream guests with us by sending an audio clip or email to afashionmomentpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can tag us on Instagram at A Fashion Moment, and you could be featured on next week's episode. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and let us know what you think. Until then, see you next time for another fashion moment. Podcast production by Rebecca Rashid and John Taylor Williams. Digital media production by Megan Porras.
This recording carries a Creative Commons 4.0 international license. Thanks to Patrick Patricios for their song, Hot Coffee.